real business owners.
Welcome back to the Real Business Owners Podcast. This is episode 88 with myself, Trevor Cowley. As always, Kel Goodman.
What's up, everybody?
Guys, today we have a kick-ass guest for you. We've got Tanner Chidester. Tanner is an entrepreneur, a coach, and a mentor, an author. What else is added to the resume?
No, that's about it, man. You don't have to go on forever.
You know, it's a growing resume. It's always evolving, though, right?
Social media expert, man. I've been watching your social media.
Yeah. Clubhouse king. We could call him that. You know, we can add to it, dude.
Forever. No, but that about sums it up. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. We're happy to have you, dude. We appreciate you coming out and taking some time with us. I know it wasn't necessarily in your schedule, but you made it work, you know, and that's what all the entrepreneurs that actually win do.
Yeah.
You know, there's always opportunities at inopportune times, and people just, okay, well, what can we do to make this work, right?
Yeah.
You know, you do have a new book that just got
Infinite
released.
Income just came out. Yeah.
As of like a week ago.
So we are still trying to get in like our warehouses and stuff, but it's on Amazon. So right now that's the only place we have it, but you know, in about 2 months, I'm going to start selling it myself. But it's on Amazon right now.
What was the purpose or the thought behind the book? Is that more of a personal branding play? Let's give people value, and then my name now has more value by default because I brought value to those individuals? Like, what's the thought?
No, it's a good question. So for me, I'm always thinking sales. Like, that's just how I think.
Yeah, of course.
And as I've gotten bigger, you know, it's not as easy as just, hey, I run this one ad and they're going to sign up.
Yeah.
You know, it was easier when I was doing like $300-400 a month. We got as high as 1.5 last year. And so people they're skeptical. They got questions. You know, there's more coaches they're looking at.
They want to see who's behind this thing.
So they want, but they don't want to have to spend a lot.
Yeah.
And so if you can give them a $20-25 book, even, you know, Kindle, whatever, and they can read your story, it's just another way for them to go, I want to know more about this guy.
Yeah.
And it's dumb, right? You make all this content, but people, they still make judgments. Even when I'll put, like the other day, I put something that was completely fun. And it was a video like my millionaire morning on TikTok blew up.
Yeah.
But they take it so seriously. Oh, it's not 4 a.m. in the morning. Well, of course it's not 4 a.m. in the morning. It's like I said, how I start my day. I get up out of bed, there's sun in the room.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy that some people make all these assumptions. But yeah, it's really just to tell my story so they can get to know me. And then I put the tactics in there. And because really once people hire me, they're paying for like how to implement it. What I do is not hard.
You could give the whole book away and the playbook, so to speak.
Yeah.
But there's still going to be 99% of people that won't take any action, even if they have the information.
And it's also just knowing how to do it, because it's one thing to say, hey, do these things to get in shape, and you get a big list. But then they're like, well, but like, am I doing the exercise correctly? And like, am I doing the right, you know, amount of food? So it's the same thing in business, like saying, hey, run ads, get people on a phone call and close them. I mean, that's really not that hard in theory.
That's as simple as you can explain it.
Right, but then like what to say on the what to say on the call, what to say in the messages, how to run the ads, how to do the stuff. That's the stuff people don't know.
Yeah.
And that's really when you're paying for coaches.
So when you're working with individuals, is that like your primary focus is let's get your marketing dialed in so that you can increase revenue? Is that like one of the main focuses coming in?
Yeah. I mean, it's actually interesting you asked. I actually hated business coaches. Like 2 years ago, I was like, you guys are all scammers. Right. You guys give shitty advice.
We've talked about this on this podcast before. Super skeptical of business coaches.
Horrible advice. Like, what was your first business? Oh, you're a business coach. That was your first business.
Yeah.
So what's funny is I got into this because I built a 7-figure fitness business. And so what happened was people go, well, how are you doing that? And I'm like, yeah, dude, like, you know, I'm kind of busy. But then all of a sudden they're like, bro, I'll pay you 10 grand. I'm like, okay. And so then they have like,
I all of a sudden have time on my calendar.
5-6 times. And I'm going, well, dude, this would double my business just by helping these people. And I have it all set up. So I started helping trainers. And then within 3 months, that was 7 figures. And then people were like, well, like, can you help outside of fitness? And I'm like, man, these people literally, they're just looking for someone who can give them
information.
Yeah, to show them what to do. And at that point, I go, you know what? There's so many of these coaches who never started a business besides consulting businesses that I was like, you know what? I actually did it. I can show them actually what works, because a lot of coaches I pay, they're like, you know, run an ad to a webinar, good luck. And if it didn't work, I'm like, I just paid you 10 grand to tell me that and it doesn't work. Like, I need more help. So to answer your question, what we do when we bring them in, I'm just trying to take them A to Z. So most of them that start, they have offers that won't sell. Hey, I want to be a mindset coach like Tony Robbins. Yeah, Tony Robbins has a huge brand. You don't. Tony Robbins could sell. Literally, he could, you know, take like his toenails and put them in a bag and someone would buy it.
Guaranteed.
You know, and
It's a
so
great point.
it's like
That's a good
helping
point.
them understand what's going to sell.
Yeah.
You don't have a big audience. You don't have a big following. And then after that, we start implementing the marketing because there's so many people who think they need this huge following to begin with. And I'm like, guys, these guys got money before they ever got the followings in most cases. Like Gary Vee and these guys, they have millions to put behind their brand.
Yes.
Right.
It's not, they built this brand and sold stuff. It's like, no. Like they sold stuff
broke.
and then they started building the brand. And so this year you're going to see me really grow on social media because I'm putting a ton of money behind it.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, so it always goes back to
got it.
pay to play.
Yeah.
It really does. So we actually started, Trev and I met working in a call center selling coaching, and it was bogus, dude. So we had a hard time buying into coaching and shit
In
like
Utah,
that.
that sounds
Yeah,
like
you
it
know,
was.
right.
Yeah.
But we were 19, dude. We didn't even know whatever was going on behind the scenes. We're just sales
we were
guys
just
on the
trained to
front end,
sell.
and we have no idea. We're like, yeah, it's gonna work, like $5,000 or $10,000 or whatever, right?
It made it so
and
we
then it
couldn't
goes to fulfillment.
believe
We have
in
no
coaching,
idea.
though, right? Which coaching is so valuable, but you do need to vet
it's
your
always
coach.
it's always level of entry. And so for me, I'll say this: no matter what you do, someone's gonna have a problem. But the reason there's so many crappy coaches is it's level of entry. So the great thing about business is there's low level of entry. But the bad thing about business is there's low level entry. Why are there better doctors and less bad doctors? You got to go to 12 years of school and residency and all these things. And so I just get people to understand, like there is more crap because it's easier to get in the business.
Yeah.
Look at the supplement industry.
That's true.
Super easy to get into.
Yeah, you can buy bottles for $5 a bottle and mark it up to 50,
So it
60
doesn't
bucks.
mean that they're all bad, but is the majority? Yeah. So, and unfortunately, I mean, that's why there's the FTC.
Right.
Some people, they just literally can't, they logically can't understand the stuff that you and me can, where we see something and go, yeah, that doesn't add up. And they're going, oh, this, and this. And I didn't even believe that. I didn't realize until I built a business that I don't think I'm that smart. I just think some people are like, they're not that smart.
Yeah.
I think I'm average.
Right.
Yeah.
So
You've actually scaled up pretty good. Do you have like a team of coaches that follow your curriculum? Did you have a hard time like maintaining quality and all that kind of stuff?
yeah,
or-
so one of the reasons I was able to scale so fast, because I always like to look, I think some people, they try to hype themselves up to the point where they're not telling the full story. So part of it was I have two younger brothers, and they were both, 22, 20, I think, what were they, 22 and 20. And they both had experience knocking doors, for sales.
Some sort of sales experience.
Right.
Yeah.
And they weren't making a lot, and they had a lot of college stuff. I said, guys, like, my business is working. I need help. Like, if you come with me, I'll take care of you. And they did. And so because I had two guys immediately, coach and a sales rep, basically, I was able to go much faster, because if not, I would have had to slow stuff down.
You only have so much time in a day.
Right. And like, I did not realize how hard it was to train and hire people. My first people I brought on board, I was like, all right, we talked for 48 hours.
Here's what I do. Now do that.
And all of a sudden I start having problems, and I'm going, okay, so this isn't as easy as I thought. So we do now, to answer your question, we have 5 full-time coaches. We have like 9 part-time. And we do one-to-one coaching for the reasons you guys have said, because a lot of people, they're dropping, $10,000, $15,000 for group coaching, and I'm just not for that. Unless it's like something you like we would do, where it's like Dan Fleischman stuff, or Ryan Dice.
They have to be worth hundreds of millions at that point.
Yeah, and like we're already making money,
$50,000.
and we're
vetting
making
their
money.
network that they can bring in too. So
Yeah.
I honestly think they just do that. Let's throw a high price point. So they're only attracting big time players. And the reason why we like spending bigger money and getting in those rooms is because we know when we're in those rooms, if they can afford that barrier of entry, then they're already quality.
Exactly.
Right? And so the network that you get to network with inside those groups, if they can afford X, then they're a player. So now we're in a room full of a bunch of players because the barrier of entry was so high, right?
Well, and that saying, your network is your net worth, I wasn't really too hypey on that until just recently, because as I'm getting around these bigger guys, that's where these opportunities come from, because they go, okay, well, X, Y, and Z, like, what do you think about this? Or they just connect you with someone, and that's a lot of times all you need. Like, for example, I was looking into starting to do some type of private equity. I had no idea where to start. So I feel, man, I'm back at ground zero like I was in my last business. Get into a room of smart guys. oh, you know Roland Frazier? Yeah, Roland has like 800 businesses, and he does one-to-one coaching where oh, great, cool, Roland, what's up? Pay him.
Exactly.
Easy, but that would have never happened otherwise. So, but I'm with you guys. Like, a lot of coaching out there is very bad, and I've learned no matter what you do, someone's going to be mad. But what I try to do to mitigate that is give them one-to-one coaching, which to me is where they can hop on Zoom calls as needed. They can message my coaches as much as they want in Facebook Messenger. We have weekly check-in sheets, so we're trying to catch where they're falling off. Because a big thing, too, I realize people won't ask for help. You have to almost know they're in trouble.
That's so valuable.
Because they won't ask, like especially lower level clients.
They'll just sit there and get frustrated, and then when they're frustrated, they're gonna blame you. Like, you should have been a psychic and known that I have a problem.
Like for me, I always speak up. I ask a ton of questions. I mean, people are gonna hear this podcast like, bro, let them talk. But it's funny because I had to realize most people don't think that way. So I started putting in systems to where we had to catch it, because by the time they tell you, it's too late. By the time a beginner client tells you they're in trouble, you already missed it. Like they're gone. They're gonna default. They're gonna get out of the program. So that's just something I try to do, and you'll still get clients who are upset. I mean, it's just
when you do business with enough people, that's just the way it works. You know, I mean, you could make 100 sandwiches the exact same. 5 of them are going to complain about the sandwich, and the other 95 could love it.
It's nuts, man. And that's something I had to get over, because sometimes you'll hear people say, yeah, like, you know, I don't get that many complaints. I'm like, yeah, but you know, you only do 100 G's a month, which is respectable for most people. But when you start getting the millions, and like, I look at companies like Apple or ADT, like ADT is hilarious, because you go on like Better Business Bureau, and it's like they've got so many complaints, but they're the leader in this space. And so there's you got to take it with a grain of salt, where no matter what you do, it's almost you're always going to get heat, but you want to do it in the most ethical way possible. So for me, what I really hated about coaching programs was I'm like, I pay 10 grand for a group where I can post questions. And I finally had a guy who kind of broke the rules. He was messaging me on the side. He wasn't really supposed to. But because I was such an implementer and he saw me, he's like, oh, bro, this guy's serious. So I just asked him quick questions and go implement. And then before you knew it, I blew up. And I asked him after, I was like, why'd you do this? Like, bro, because I literally had no clients who would do what you did. Like, you didn't even want to talk. You'd only hit me up. And you're like, just tell me what to do so I can go work. And that's my mentality. I don't want to talk a lot. I don't want to waste your time. Like, just tell me what I need to know and I'll go do it.
A lot of the value for coaching is the accountability. So it's really hard. You can't really hold your client that accountable if it's just group coaching and if it's designed just to grab cash and put a group together. You know, like if you're one-on-one, which I respect that you keep it that way, because you probably have built into your curriculum, like, dude, you're going to help hold these guys accountable because that's what they need.
I don't mind the whole group coaching thing as long as it's priced right. Like if it's $200 to $400 or $500 a month,
depends on what you're going with.
That's different. But you shouldn't be paying 10 or 20 grand for a group
coach. It's just the individual. You know? Beginners, it's not going to work. My one-to-one clients, they'll pay me over 6 figures to work directly with me, not my team. Right. They bother me the least, but that because they're in that place where they're like, I just need direction. Their time too. Yeah, they don't want to waste time. They're just like, I just need to know exactly what to do and then leave me alone.
They don't need the pep talks as much. They need the strategies.
Exactly.
Right. They're already motivated enough, and if they can have that much coin to shell out, they're ready to play in the game.
Part of coaching is like you're almost a therapist, and what I didn't like about group was that the coaches will frame it as, hey, it's actually better for you to get group coaching because it makes you be more responsible. But I don't like how that's framed. I get it's a good way to sell it, but at the end of the day, I'm going, man, when someone's paying that price, I personally don't feel right to only give them group coaching, because I just feel like that's
a lot of money to some people.
That's a lot of money. And for me, I spent 50 grand before I ever started scaling. I was just doing organic messaging, and all the money that would come in, coach. More money would come in, a new coach. And I'm just sitting here going, oh my gosh, these guys are just dropping all this money. Yeah. And then I'm not getting good coaching. You want to do right by them. And for some people, it's their one shot. And I go, man, if someone only gets one shot, they're going to pay me 5 figures. And this is their one shot, or they're going to quit and never run a business. I got to give them the best chance possible. And I don't personally feel good if the only way for them to get a question answered is they post in a group or send a support ticket. Yeah. That's just me.
No, that's super cool. What are some of the common things that you see when you're working with entrepreneurs? Like, is there a common problem that they all have that you can identify pretty quick, right? Like, just like a company has frequently asked questions, they can just post it there so that they don't get bugged about stuff.
Yeah.
Like, is there specific questions because you already know that there's going to be specific problems and you can identify it that much quicker?
Yeah. So, especially with beginners who don't have money.
Yeah.
The reason I teach people service-based businesses to start is because when you don't have any money, you can't go buy products or do fulfillment.
Yeah.
And it's all this stuff that's over their head anyways.
Right.
And then a lot of time the product they're selling sucks. Like even on Clubhouse, some of the people come up and talk about, this is my business, and I just want to almost like stop the room and say,
throw it in the trash.
hey, I
and
love
do
you.
something else.
I'm not trying to be rude, but your business sucks, and no one's gonna buy that, and no one's gonna buy it.
I thought that a few times. I go over their Instagram and I see
so
it, and it's like
bad.
necklaces or something, and it's just terrible. It's like,
and the margins aren't there, and it's super competitive. So,
but I've been wrong before, so it's like, who knows? Maybe in 2 or 3 years they grow into something that's great. I don't know, and I don't want to. I'm not here to smash anybody's dreams, but at the end of the day, you almost feel like you're doing them a disservice by not being honest with them in some cases, but you just never know what the right thing to do is there.
Like, for me, the biggest thing is they usually don't know what to sell. So one of the biggest things we do when we bring them in, hey, we need to sit and package this. And I tell people, look, keep it simple. If it's not in wealth, health, or relationships, people probably won't buy it at scale, or you're guessing. And I'm like, you can't afford to guess when you got $2,000 in your bank account and your got bills to pay. That's where I was at. So I was like, I'm a fitness coach. I'm doing fitness coaching to start. That's what I knew.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's really tactics. Most people, they don't know how to sell. They don't know how to message. I could not believe one of the biggest things we teach is how to message properly. Because when you have an online business, that's where all of it happens. It's
did I message you properly, or did I do it wrong?
Oh no, you did good. You guys did good. No, but
you're here, right?
But yeah, you're here.
So.
But I'm just talking when they're trying to make sales. I just say, guys, like it's like talking to a girl or a girl talking to a guy. They say things that are just weird, and it turns people off. And I'm going, you have to make the sale very smooth and transitional, just like a conversation. And they'll come in and hey, so yeah, I saw this and this, yeah. So like, are you looking for help with this? No one's gonna respond to that.
Right.
Yeah.
And so a lot of what we have to teach our clients is how to talk properly, how to pitch properly. And I didn't realize it was such a skill until I started teaching people and stuff I took for granted. Yeah. I could not believe.
Things that were natural to you, where it just was common sense. Well, like, this is the way you should do it.
Well, and so when I finally started making money, it was just, I was doing a low ticket offer. I had no ads. I didn't realize, like, I was kind of using the wrong system to get to where I'm at. And so I'd done door-to-door sales. I've been a server. I've been a Division I athlete. So someone goes, yeah, do high ticket sales. Raise your prices. And I my first initial thought was, people will pay that?
Yeah.
I honestly couldn't believe people would pay. I'm like, so you're telling me someone will pay me $2,000 for 4 months of fitness coaching? You're crazy. And in that first week, I made $10,000, and I go, you got it. This was all I had to do.
Right.
Dude, we did a podcast on raising your prices, and even if somebody cuts hair, even like $5 like per client, but people fear losing out on the crumbs almost, right? Like, it's like, do the things that you know will get you where you want to go. And if part of it is raising your prices, the ones that don't really value end up going away anyways. And why would you want to work with somebody that doesn't really value you anyways? And when people are spending a little bit more, they're going to take whatever it is that you're offering a little bit more serious. They got more skin in the game too.
It's just a lot of times it's the wrong vehicle. So people don't look at their goals. So if your goal is to do $100 million, like be net worth, we even talked about this earlier. What do you probably got to do? Private equity, build something and sell it, like Facebook, which is the hardest thing to do for a beginner. So it's like, don't start there. And then maybe like a network marketing company where you're the CEO. That's probably about it. I mean, realistically. So most people, they don't ever make enough to get out of their situation. I was making $3,000 a month. So if I sell $3,000 worth of product in a month and I make $6,000 and I take home 50%, does that really change my life? Like, did that really move me that far forward?
No, it was helping you keep a roof over your head and
it pays the bills. It pays the bills. And so for a beginner, I'm just thinking, look, if you can sell something for $3,000 or even 15 4 times in a month, once a week, that will move your life farther than it would doing all this other nonsense. And it's the easiest. You reach out to someone, learn how to message properly, get them on a call, sell them. And then once you have cash, you can do all these other things. Now that I have cash, I want to do other stuff. I want to do private equity. I want to buy businesses and sell them and do real estate. I just think some of the advice, at least, like even on Clubhouse, right? It's just new. It's just bad for beginners because they're giving advice from a 30,000 foot view, but these guys are pros. These guys are animals, and they forget that these beginners cannot implement stuff they're telling them.
Bro, I'll tell you this right now. I mean, we do over we do really well. And even me in Clubhouse hearing some of their answers, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
You know, because that's how much at a higher level some of these players are that are worth 100 or 200 million. They understand a whole different level of business that we haven't even got to yet, right?
Yeah. And so people that are just trying to sell on Etsy aren't going to understand what the hell you're talking about.
That's what I'm saying. If I'm having trouble understanding some of their thought processes because they're that elevated, like you're talking about 30,000 foot elevation view versus being in the weeds like a startup, there's such a disconnect there that it's like, it just goes right over your head.
Well, and like someone will go, how do I start this business? And they're like, okay, so you need to really focus on your personal brand and do YouTube and this and this. And I literally chime in. I go, they have no money, they have no skill, they can't probably edit videos. Build a personal brand, I'm just sitting there going, hey, actually do this. Take what you know, your 9-to-5 skills, create an offer in the health, wealth, or relationship industry, and sell it for $3,000, and that's gonna go a lot faster for you than all this nonsense. I just don't agree with a lot of the advice because they're not in a position to execute. They don't have all these things, and so I think some of us forget once we've gone from that beginner stage to an expert level that who we're talking to.
Yeah, because we could talk about like, hey, if you're spending $5,000 a month in marketing. And in some cases, businesses are barely making $5,000 a month right now.
They're not even taking home $5,000.
Yeah, exactly. So sometimes we use maybe numbers that we shouldn't use that seem low to us, but might be high to somebody else, right? Our last podcast was about personal branding and starting to maybe, if your budget is $5,000, peel off $2,500, start building your personal brand, and use the other $2,500 for right now, so that you're working on your long term and short term.
Well, and to what you just said, I love that. But again, think of this: if I spend $25,000 on Instagram shoutouts, okay, let's say I get one follower for every $2 or $3, whatever. Let's say I get 8,000 followers, and I have a $5,000 program. Well, if I sell 5, that means I can continue to do that every month. When you sell a $50 product, I'm like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And so
the margins aren't there to support it.
And like I sell low ticket stuff, but I was doing 7 figures when I started because I can afford to make that up with upsells down the road. And that's what people don't understand. They go, oh, I see this guy, he does that. Right, but he's going to upsell you later. Yeah. You're not seeing that.
There's a back end.
There's always a back end, and that's where the money's made.
Yeah. Right.
It's always a back end.
Exactly. So let me ask you this. What are some of your non-negotiables, like some of the habits that you created that you would contribute your success to today? Like, because usually people, when they're right here and then they start elevating, there were some changes of habits, right? Yeah. They created some maybe new habits that helped them elevate, whether it's their mindset, their income, all of that pretty much goes hand in hand.
I think for me, one of my gifts is work ethic. I even as a kid, I was 14 and I wanted to make varsity football so bad in Texas. Football is everything. You're a god.
Yeah.
I wanted to make varsity so bad as a 14-year-old.
Just for the babes?
No, dude. It was my goal. I wanted to play in the NFL.
Okay.
I wanted to play in the NFL. I have a whole story around that, but I knew that if I really wanted to get scouted seriously, you got to get on those varsity teams quick because that's what they're looking for.
Get your reps in.
I was 14 years old. I'd wake up at 6 a.m. I'd work out for 3 hours, come home, eat and sleep for 3 hours, go back out and run for 3 hours, come back home and do it again. And then I'd play basketball because I was a 2-sport athlete at the time. And I was 14 years old. And at the time, I didn't think anything of it. I just was like, okay, like I have to outwork everyone. Mm-hmm. But there's so many people who, you'll even get people who come to us, hey, like, can we pay you this and you'll just run our company? I'm like, why would I run your company? Like my ceiling is like be above your floor. Like it's not even in the same spot. So I'd say work ethic is one. I know that sounds cliche, but that's one. And then the other thing is just not, I think I just have a really good aptitude to not always think I'm right. I'm very confident, but I've always just been someone who always asks questions. And
like a lifetime student, just always being open-minded to new information.
I just seek people out ahead of me. And at a young age, I actually had a mentor who, David Fry, he's married to Russell Brunson's cousin. And he let me intern for free because he saw how hard I worked and he couldn't believe it. He'd give me feedback. I remember one time I shot 30 videos, did them all wrong. And I show him and he's like, just PO'd, right? He's just cussing. I wouldn't say he's cussing, but he's yelling at me and like he's LDS. He probably wasn't cussing. That's exaggerating.
He was saying freaking.
But yeah, he's like freaking crap. Yeah. But he just like almost chewed me out. I was like, okay, no worries, I'll redo him. And he told me the next day he couldn't believe that because do most people they'll fall apart. Yeah. He said I had employees
just say it's not for me or something.
I had employees that I would rip apart and they couldn't handle it. So I've just always been able to handle adversity at a high level.
Do you think that that's part of being an athlete though, and used to being critiqued by coaches and just always looking for, hey, how can I improve?
I say all the time, I wish if I had spent the time I put into sports and put it into business, I'd already be worth over, I swear I'd be worth over 100 mil, like, at least. And, you know, I'm 28, right? But it's always hindsight. If I hadn't done sports, I may have not grown that work ethic because, you know, when I play sports, not in high school, but after, you know, I'm one of 3 white guys, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just how it works, and that's fine. But I just learned, I wasn't born with natural ability per se. Now, I maximized what I had.
Yeah.
But when I look back, and then I see some of the guys I play with who went in the first round, 5th pick in the draft, I go, that guy could have sat on his butt, and I never would have reached his level. Yeah. It didn't matter because
there's talent and there's hard work, and you could get where you want to go if you're talented or if you work hard.
Yeah.
But the people that have talent and work hard, those are the ones that end up being Hall of Famers.
But business, what I love is it equals a playing field. Doesn't matter how big, tall, short, fat you are. If you put in the work and you have a good idea, it can work. And that was attractive to me, where I go, oh my gosh, if I put the same effort I put into sports into this, it'll be easy. And some people ask me, what's the hardest thing you've ever done? And when I actually think about it, it's not business. The hardest thing I actually ever did was door-to-door security sales.
Yeah.
That was the hardest thing I ever did.
Why would you say that though? What's the contributing factor there? Because you know, door to door, that's a great way to learn how to become an entrepreneur, because you're going to get, you know, you're going to get shit thrown at you, so to speak, right? Punched in the mouth quite frequently. And you'll learn how to become resilient, which you have to be in business, right?
It's overcoming rejection.
Exactly.
It mentally, that was the hardest thing I've ever been through in my life mentally, because I'm waking up, you know, 6 a.m., I hit the gym, we have a meeting, and then we go to area, and we knock till dark. And first off, I was scared when I first started, because I'm going in areas I didn't even know people lived like that.
Yeah.
That was shocking to me. But just the amount of mental beating you have to be willing to take. You hit 100 doors, you're going to make 3 sales. And so it gave me this mindset of, it doesn't matter what they say, I don't have to take it personal. But it took months. And so after 6 months of taking a beating, and I almost quit. There were a few times. But there's something inside me that won't let me quit things, which is good and bad sometimes. But when I finished that and I started doing online business, I couldn't believe that people wanted what I was selling. I go, wait, you want this? Oh, great.
When you got more than yeses than 3% of the time that, you know, that it is on door knocking, like, what the hell?
Yeah, and it just absolutely, that was the hardest thing I ever did, but it was the best thing I ever did, because everything after that was so easy, because I was sitting in my underwear making sales for 3, 4, you know, sometimes over 10 grand. And I'm like, I'm knocking on doors for a $500 commission.
Yeah.
In Alabama, 100 degrees, people are, you know, I think most people, they just don't want to work hard. They say it, but when it comes down to it, it's so easy to say. Like, it's easy to go,
I'm a hustler, I'm a grinder, I
sold in Alabama for 6 months, 12 hours a day. You know what that was actually like to live that? I mean, it was terrible. It was the worst experience of my life. But what I got from that was the amount of mental fortitude I got from that.
I could so relate to that.
That brings up a good point, just in terms of like hardships. Like we talked about on a podcast a couple episodes ago, your underprivilege can end up being your privilege, right?
1,000%.
Or your hardships that you had to overcome end up becoming your privileges, right? And so the fact that you put yourself in a very difficult situation created a callus that carried over for the rest of your life, to where now everything that you do moving forward, hard is really not as hard as hard, right? And so it's just all about perspective.
What about you guys giving your kids stuff? I hated my dad. I hated my dad because we lived in a rich neighborhood, but he was a teacher and we had 7 kids. So all of a sudden being rich or, making a little extra side hustle, whatever, it wasn't that much. And he would never give me stuff. I remember I was 14. I asked him, "Hey, can I go to the movies?" He's like, "Yeah, sure." I was like, "Okay, can I have some money?" He's like, "Well," he just looks at me quizzically almost. That's a big word. "Do you have a job?" And I'm like, "Well, Dad, no, I go to school." He's like, "Oh, I guess you can't go." And he just walked off. But so part of me,
our parents were such better parents than us.
Yeah, but what I mean by that is I just think part of me never wanted to have to worry about money like I saw my parents. And we weren't poor, right? But it was a budget, and we only had what we needed.
There were the yeses for the right things and the nos for the things that didn't matter.
And I just never wanted to live a life where I couldn't get stuff because of money. Because when you think about it, when people travel and have vacations and nice things, the only difference is money. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
No one's like, "Oh, I don't want to travel to Barbados. I don't want to go to Jamaica." Yeah, you do. Yeah. You just can't afford it. You can't take time off. And so I didn't ever want money to be the reason I couldn't live my fullest potential and live my best life. And so I don't know. I don't want to get too much off a tangent, but I do think some people look at rich people and they think that, they're greedy and all these things, but it just comes down to having options and opportunity. And ironically, then we want to give back more. And really to help people, you got to have green. You got to have a lot of it. And
it's a tool.
I just think people lose sight of that, and I just have the attitude that nothing's gonna stop me getting what I want, because when I see more successful people, I sit around guys like you. I want to be around you. There's people who literally will be around us, and they only think negative things. He must have screwed someone. He must have scammed someone. Oh, yeah. His dad has a trust fund. I mean, a
lot of broke people think that about rich people.
Someone said that to me. I go, "My dad was a teacher, dude. Yeah. A teacher." Yeah. And so there's just, it's almost like there's just something to prove. I have never met someone that I didn't think I could be just like them. I'm like, they just know something I don't know.
Yeah.
I heard your story actually, and I could totally relate to it, man, because I grew up. I mean, I wasn't super poor, but we were poor. We were like the poorest ones in our neighborhood, and I was bullied. You know, I was like, damn, I was the last kid picked all the time, got my ass whooped all the time, and but I did have a dad who was a contractor. Yeah. I learned hard work from him, and I had a lot to prove to these assholes that freaking bullied me. When I got into middle school sports, I wanted to prove them wrong. When I got into high school, I wanted to prove them wrong. Yep. When I got into sales, I wanted to prove them wrong. And that did fuel me for a long time. And so I heard one of your interviews how you were like, man, I was getting bullied a little bit, and I had to learn hard work in my upbringing, and I'm so grateful for it now.
You know, I don't think it would have happened. You know, when I lived, all my rich friends, they still get money from their parents.
Yeah.
And some of the people who made fun of me and stuff, it's almost like you need it. I don't know if I would be the person I am without it, because because it gave me fuel. Because they looked down on me. They looked at me like I was this piece of crap. And so part of it was I wanted to prove myself that I am somebody. I am worth something. Right. And ironically, though, as you get more money on a personal level, it can kind of be to your detriment, because you get all these things, and then sometimes you're like, oh, I'm actually not that much happier. Not that it's a bad thing to have things, but something I've had to learn recently is I've gotten all these things, and then I'm still feel almost like more fulfilled. Yeah. But I don't know, man. I want to change anything. I love that I want to keep growing, and that's what actually makes life exciting for me, is to continue to grow. So at this point, it's not even about the money. I want to make $100 million business because of what that's going to represent. I don't care. The money is just, it's the measuring stick almost.
Yeah, well, I mean, 50 mil would be just fine. But, you know, I mean, you can live a good life on that.
Yeah, very
but
good.
There's still, you know, it's just about really stretching yourself, because as you build things and you look back on building those things, you see how much you evolved as an individual during the build, right? And how much more valuable you are as a human being because of some of those experiences that you had to go through. And the issue is people get to a certain point, and then they just kind of get on maintenance mode, and they maintain what they have, and they stop pushing, and then they get really depressed because it's Groundhog Day and they're just doing the same shit, you know? And so that's really the separator, I think, from uber successful people versus the people that make a couple $100,000 a year and get really comfortable. The individuals that are really successful and continue to see success and reach new levels are always stretching themselves, always challenging themselves. You just talked about earlier, I want to start getting into this.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that. You can live a good life right now, but you're wanting to stretch yourself, right? In terms of the way, we grew up. I grew up very poor, powdered milk type shit.
That stuff tastes terrible.
It's terrible.
I had that sometimes.
Powdered milk, lights being shut off, watching my mom cry to the utility department, all that whole thing. But I think, again, we're all sitting in this room talking about some hardships that we had at a young age that helped us get to the point where we're at, right? And I think individuals where things come easy to them, the smart kid in class that don't really have to study, or the athlete that doesn't have to put in 3 hours in the morning and then 3 hours of running and then napping and then, worrying about their nutrition, they're just really good. I think that they're at a disadvantage long term because, again, they don't have that grit or work ethic that had to be created at such a young age to overcome, right? So that's their detriment. That's not their superpower.
I agree.
Right?
I agree. Like, there's something to be said for having your back against the wall. So when you have a rich parent to bail you out, you're like, well, worst case, I can always fall back. When my parents...
Right when you get a hardship, what are you going to do?
It was like...
Fall back.
It was like, hey, man, good luck.
Yep.
Let me know how it goes. When I started my business, you're like, cool, man, let us know how it goes. There was no, here's money, here's this. Yeah. And so I get now why some people with wealth treat their kids a certain way, because when you just give them that, they just they lose that internal drive. Because why? Why would you go through hell when you don't have to?
You're not incentivizing them to have a work
right,
ethic.
and they can't see what we see yet because and we couldn't see it even. So for me, it wasn't. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, in that moment, you probably were upset and frustrated.
Oh.
Like, why are you doing this? And all the other kids get money from their parents,
Dude,
right?
People,
and you don't understand it until you're older.
Seeing people making money, and I was selling door to door, just trying to make money so I could start my business. That was my mindset, which isn't correct, but that's what I thought at the time. I mean, it was so demoralizing, and it just fueled me to like, I just gotta like just make this the best and just try to get money and get out of this thing, because I don't know. I just
like almost every time you get hit, you come back a little bit more hungry. It sounds like, when you face adversity, it's almost like it makes you a little bit more thirsty for success. Yeah. Right. Every time you've had a hardship, you've dug in a little bit deeper and continued to push past the hardship. Yeah. When most people quit at the hardship, overcoming that, on the other side, you'll be a completely different person. Yeah. And really, that's a lot of where the value comes from, because when you're a different person and you can add more value to other people's lives, what happened? You can charge more. And now you can make more money. Yeah. So if you're not overcoming anything, you're not becoming an individual of value. Therefore, you can't charge a premium rate and ever get to the point of making $100 million. Right?
Do you got kids?
I don't yet. And I think I'm gonna hold on. I just know.
Ladies, he's available. He's selling sperm right now. That's the new business.
Having a kid, man, is just like a business. That's a huge responsibility. It is. Yeah. If you're gonna be a good dad, and that's what I want to do, so I'm holding off on that. But something to your point that I just thought about is, it's been very helpful in business. It's actually been to my detriment in personal life, but almost external validation, bullying and getting put down, and the stuff I went through. It kind of leads to external validation, because that really was what I was striving for with the money at first.
You're proving that you're
I'm trying to show people
value.
like F you for doubting me. Look at what I got. Look what I got that you don't have. But, not to go on a different tangent, but what's funny is, as you make more money, it becomes less about the validation, because you realize chasing that's not going to make you happy. Yeah. It's just more about the growth. And so I will say that I am super happy and super blessed that people gave me crap, made fun of me, had parents who couldn't always give me what I want, because it's why I am who I am. And I wouldn't change it for anything. And most of the guys I meet, I mean, both your stories, it's the same thing. Yep. It's the same thing. I rarely meet someone who's like, oh, I got everything I ever wanted. Yep. Life was really easy, and I'm still super successful. Yep. I never hear that, really.
How can you create a level of discipline to be successful if you've never had to be disciplined?
I agree.
And so it just, those two things really just don't go together. And so there's a lot of people that are listening to this, probably going through startup phase, going through a lot of hardships, wondering if it's all going to be worth it. You need to understand the reason why you feel that it's a hardship. And sometimes you feel like you're in no man's land a little bit, like trying to, create a new life for yourself that's out here, and you have to leave the old one. Yeah. But all of those struggles are just molding you into something new and different. And in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you're going to look back and say, I value those hardships and the time that it took to overcome that, right? And if you're not going through hardships, you're not going to ultimately ever have to learn anything new if it's just coming easy to you. And if you're never learning anything new, you're going to get to a certain level and you're just going to plateau. You can't plateau if you're constantly learning new shit and you're putting yourself in tough situations constantly, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's really the issue in the world is people get out of high school, they get out of college, they get to a certain point where they can live and have shelter, food, and a car, and then now that's it. They don't want to go through any more hardships. They want to maintain the lifestyle that they have rather than continuing to put themselves in tough situations and seeing what they're really made of, right?
Yeah, I don't know how desperate you guys got when you were growing your business initially, but when it really changed for me is when I had the thought. I was just sitting there one day and I had the thought because it wasn't working and I didn't want to have to admit to people it wasn't working. I didn't want to have to move home and all these things. And I just sat there and thought, I would rather be homeless than not figure this thing out. And I think a lot of people, it's like the burying the ships model.
Yeah.
In my head, I just thought, you know what? Keep thinking about this and this.
This is my only way out.
This is my only way out, or I will try the rest of my life trying. And most people, they just do not have that mentality. And again, it's easy to say, and that's the thing that drives me nuts with people. We'll have these podcasts and videos and all this stuff, and we say stuff, and people are like, oh, it sounds nice. But when you're actually mean something to that level and you're living it, that's when stuff happens. And I think a lot of people, they're just not really willing to do a lot of stuff they say or want it as bad as they say.
Sure.
So.
Well, there's plenty of things you could say that sounds really cool that makes you look like a badass, but if there's really no action behind it, then you end up looking like a dumbass, right? So be careful what you say if you really don't have the work ethic or action to really back up what you're saying, because there's plenty of people online that pout their chest or puff their chest out and say this, that, the other, or whatever, but then you really don't ever see anything behind that. All they're talking about is what they're gonna do. They're not showing you what they are doing, right? Yeah. Since we have a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to the show, and I would guess a majority of them are probably going through the startup phase, what's a piece of advice that you would give an entrepreneur going through the startup phase, the first 1 or 2 years in business?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things to hit on. I guess there's two things. I like people to keep in mind when I give advice. All our advice is from our own experiences, what we've been through. Yeah. And so I'm always open to different things. But two things I would say is one, find one cheerleader, because what's going to happen is when you're starting, people will talk shit. Yep. People will say bad things. They will say you're not going to make it. My own family, my brother who works for me now, right? And I love my brother, and he's changed a lot. But he used to say comments, "Hey man, how's the business going?" And he knew it wasn't going well, and you knew he was jabbing.
Twisting the dagger.
You knew he was jabbing at me, right? My ex-girlfriend at the time broke up with me because of it. Her mom was pissed because I left school, and so what kept me in the game actually was I had David Fry, and he's married to Russell Brunson's cousin. ClickPhones were, and he's like, Tanner, look, I know you don't understand, but he's like, just don't quit. He's like, you can make a lot of money. You have what it takes. And there was 4 or 5 times over that 2-year period
that you wanted to walk away.
22 to 25. I made $2,000.
Yeah.
25 to 28. I've done 25 million in plus in sales. A lot different. So he would just be like, hey, dude, don't quit. Because I call him and say, dude, I think I'm going to go back to school.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to go back to school. So you got to find one person who's going to be your cheerleader. And then two,
talk some sense into you.
I would just tell most people, don't try to hit the home run Facebook on the first business. The best thing I ever did was I took my skills. I didn't have to, spend any money. It was 100% profit when I sold it to start. 100% profit. Sell something, for a decent price. Not to rip people off. It's got to be a good service, but you'd be surprised what people will pay if you can actually give them great service and a one-to-one service and a high-level service. And once you have cash, then you can start doing other stuff. But a lot of people, I think, they put themselves in such a bad, desperate place because they used the wrong business model to start. And so as soon as I had cash, I was like, wow, now I can do this and I can do this and I can do that. But when you have no cash and you're trying to hit a home run, I think for the average person, not guys like you and me or guys who have exceptional work ethic, but I think for the average person, you got to give them the best chance of success. And I think of it as if they have 10 doors to walk through or they have one shot, Your job as a coach or a consultant or anything is to give them advice that's like, this is your only shot. This is what I would do. And I think some of the advice out there that people listen to is just, it's not bad advice per se, but when it's their last at bat, yeah, it's not good advice. You don't tell someone to like, it's like bases are loaded and it's a tie game. You don't tell your guy to swing as hard as he can. Like, bro, just pop it in the outfield. So it's those two things.
Get a couple runs in.
Yeah,
you win one base at a time.
Yeah.
You most of the games you're not winning based upon home runs, right?
Yeah. And go ahead.
Did you go through any moments, because you've talked a little bit about ethics and giving the best advice and making sure your service is solid. Did you go through any moments in your business or sales career where like, man, that was not the proudest moment that now serves you in developing that care?
Like in how I treated someone?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just even like sales tactics, ethics, or business things that you did were like, man, because I went through that. I went through some things and I'm like, man, that wasn't my proudest moment, but I learned from it. It serves me now to give the best quality service. Right?
I mean, even to this day, I think we always make mistakes. I mean, you'll get some, especially when you're doing, we're doing 100 to 150 high ticket clients a month, so you're going to get some complaints here and there no matter what. It's just the nature of the beast. And so for me, sometimes my moments will be like, we'll get someone who charges back, who we gave a full service, gave us a testimonial. Right. And I say some things like, probably shouldn't say that, especially as the CEO of the company, but I feel very...
that's the old school, fiery athlete coming out, like, because it's not right.
I feel, it just makes me feel very taken advantage of, because I'm not, like, one of the best attributes I have, like I said, in my opinion, is I went through all that stuff. I paid the business coaches. I took the courses. I went through the shit. And it was like, you know what? I've never charged back on anyone. I never, like, the most I ever did is I asked the guy, I said, hey, dude, like, I'm not going to charge back, but, like, can I get 50% refund? Because it was just like, it was a done for you service and it wasn't done right. But all the done with you and the coaching I paid for, I've never asked that. And so I'm just in my head going, man, even if you thought this was the worst program ever, which it isn't, because I've done all the programs, I know I'm giving you a superior service. That's what bothers me, because it's like, we took all our time, we serviced you, we did this, and then you took advantage of us. And especially with COVID, a lot of people started doing that. I know a lot of companies were going through tons of chargebacks because people are just desperate.
Yeah, they're just grabbing. I had a conversation with a client probably 6 years ago that charged back, and I called him and was like, dude, what's the deal?
Yeah.
Like, why are you charging back? And he goes, well, I just needed money right now. I know that the chargeback takes like 3 or 4 months. You guys will get your money back, but I just needed it like a loan. So I'm like, he charged back to borrow himself money because the credit card companies favor the consumer. And then you've got to prove that the services were rendered and go through that 2-month process or whatever and then win. But he borrowed himself some cash through a chargeback.
And like reviews, he owned it. And reviews too suck, because like as a company, you tend as a human being to only focus on the negative. So like, we'll get all these amazing reviews, and then you get like one person who goes on a site and writes something and like can say whatever they want and ultimately
and have no merit to it.
Yeah,
and you can't even do
you can't do anything.
Yeah.
You can't do anything but sit there and
bullshit.
Go, oh my gosh, and they'll just say whatever they have to say to get it back. I mean, I've seen people who like they had to go to court because of FTC stuff, and the person is like in court basically lying and saying this and this and this, but it didn't matter. So there's a few things with business that kind of rub me, but yeah, like ultimately I've mellowed out some, which is like some people, you have to ask my video guy, sometimes he doesn't think so, but I've mellowed out more to just think of it as it's part of business. Try not to take it personal. That's the hard thing. And then and also understand their perspective. I think a lot of times when we get upset with people, we're not putting themselves in their shoes. So if I think to myself, look, this guy came in, and sometimes like the client's not that skilled. So maybe that's our fault, right? And I'll sit there and go, you know what? This guy came in, wasn't that skilled. This and this and this. He's complaining about that and that and that. Maybe we shouldn't have sold him. Maybe, and I try to see both sides. And when you do that, even if like technically you're not wrong, you didn't do anything. They signed an agreement. They knew what they're getting. You still have an opportunity
to learn, trying to see things from different angles.
You try to think like, hey, he's desperate. He's going through this. Maybe this is happening. And it'll soften your heart a little bit to the point where you may not feel good about it, but you at least understand it. And that's what I've been trying to focus on, because, no matter what you do, I bet you guys have had the same thing. No matter what you do, someone's going to have a problem. I bet you guys may have even had someone on a podcast who later you found out, oh, he said, it may not, right? But maybe someone said something bad about you. You're like, man, well, like, didn't we have him on our podcast? Like, why are you?
I don't know yet.
Right, but just weird stuff happens in business. Yeah. So I would to answer
we got a review last week that says all of these reviews are fake. 1 star on Easier Accounting. That was just so weird.
We can't even see if he's a client because his name is M.O.
Yeah, it's like N.O. or something like that. And I honestly think it's somebody from Instagram. I think that I've thought about that because our bio says like Easier Accounting, has our businesses. Yeah. So if I rub somebody the wrong way in DMs or in the comment section that's an asshole, right, that says something stupid, so I'll say something stupid back, right? You want to play stupid games, you get stupid prizes. Let's go. You know, like that's just the way I am.
It does suck because we have a lot of pride in how we build our business, right?
But, especially nowadays. But it's like, how do you prove that this person that doesn't even have a name, they created a fake account for that purpose? It could be a competitor,
which is the irony in them saying the fake review.
Yeah, like the fake review says all the reviews are fake. Yeah, when those are our customers.
Yeah,
I like the reviews that we got. We got one time that was like, "This company's super great" and all this stuff, and then they gave us 3 stars.
Yeah, well, they said a great. Yeah, I'm like, and you not change that?
Like, you're like, bro, the 5, please, the 5.
What's his number? Let's look him up.
One other thing that I think is interesting too is as you make more money, you know, I had to go through hell, and then you start making more money, and then I've had clients who sometimes say, hey man, like, you know, I really need to pause the payments X, Y, and Z. And, you know, part of me is like, the side of Tanner that I just told you about, try to understand. But the other part of me is I go, yeah, man, I got bills too, bro. Yeah. Like I was in the position you were in too. Like,
and I made it work.
And it's hard. Yeah. That's where some of that comes from because I don't ask anyone to do something I've never done. I never, everything I ever ask a coach, a client, a consultant, anyone who hires me, I'm like, bro, I'm asking you to do a 10th of what I'm doing. Like, I've spent 700 G's on coaching. Like, I've spent millions on Facebook ads. I've had employees come in and take clients. Also, I'm like, bro, I'm just asking you to just
I'm telling you to do what I've done so that you can get the result that you say that you want.
So I think it's hard for guys like us who just we got a lot of passion and we've gone through a lot of hard stuff to not take it personal because you're not gonna make everyone. Not everyone's gonna like you. And I also am like gracious enough to go, I'm probably not perfect. There's probably stuff that, you know, I'm sitting here touting a great program, and I think it is, but there's, you know, maybe there is stuff I can improve.
There's always room to improve. Yeah.
But it just rubs me wrong when, like, I guess someone does something that I wouldn't do. And, you know, but it is business, man. I guess that's what makes it fun. So
keeps it interesting for sure. You know, we get pitched curveballs all the time you know, even at this level. I think the curveballs are even much more curvy at this level.
Oh, man.
You got to be that much more sharp to see it and hit it and figure it out. You know, so. So Tanner's a superstar on Clubhouse. We talked about Clubhouse a little bit last week. He's actually on Clubhouse right now while he's on the podcast. You know? He's gaming the game, dude, and I think that's badass. You know, it was like 11.
We'll see if I'm still on when the podcast is over.
It's 11 o'clock when he shows up and he's looking for a charger. You know, that's how you know he's burning through that battery.
Bro.
You know,
goodness gracious.
So. We shared a little bit of our thoughts last week on Clubhouse. That's kind of the new thing. Guys, just so that you understand, that's how we connected with Tanner, is through Clubhouse. Yeah. You know, we kind of see people or whatever, and you can tell who's doing some business,
if you're getting on there, follow him.
Get behind the other 30,000 people. But you can get behind the 500 that follow me. I'll value you more, I promise. I'll see you.
I love this.
You're gonna, you know. Thoughts on Clubhouse, though, for real. Like, in terms of, you know, where do you think it's going? What do you think people should be doing? Do you think it's an app that everybody should be on right now? Is it an app that is just wasting time? Tell us your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so for me, right now, I think the app is made for CEOs with big teams. Yeah. Anyone I see spending enormous amounts of time on it has a big team because if it's taking away from you making sales, running ads, lead generation, which is really the most important thing in a business, the profit, then you shouldn't be on there. So that's the first thing I'll say. The second thing is that what it is doing better than anything I've ever seen before is the connections. That's how I met you guys. That's how I've just gotten in some huge circles from that. So it's actually been not a benefit more for sales, but a benefit for the higher level guys I've been trying to connect to. Like, like networking has always been, especially when you're like working from your house, you're not really connecting and networking. And a lot of the guys are living all over the country. So that's been the biggest benefit for me, is networking with high level guys. And then I'd say the third benefit is that, you know, people get initial impressions. So just like even before we met, right? You always have initial impressions of people. You look at their Instagram, you look at their ads, you look at their pictures. Oh,
creep on them a little bit.
Yeah, this guy looks kind of douchey or this or that. And then when they hear you on Clubhouse, they're like, oh man, this guy probably isn't that bad. And I've even had the same thoughts with people. And I try to catch myself because we all do it.
Prejudge.
Whether we always, it's just human nature. We immediately, when we see someone, prejudge, and we have this internal perception. And then a lot of times, like everyone, after we get to know people, almost every person, you rarely walk away. There's a few people.
I hate that guy.
Yeah, you're like, you know what? He's not that bad. He's all right. And so that's been a big superpower on Clubhouse, is people are getting on calls with my sales team. And they're like, oh yeah, I heard Tanner on Clubhouse. And my team's like, bro, get on there more and talk. Because when you talk, they get to know you a little more. But I would say for beginners, they should not be on there. I've told all my clients to stay off. I think it's a huge time waster. And unless, like we talked about, I think unless you've already done something, you're not going to get pulled up to a big stage. And that's the people who are running the stages, and they're trying to maximize it because they have the team behind them to push the leads.
What do you think about people looking for like free coaching and mentoring? Because there is a little bit of that going on in Clubhouse. There's a lot of good advice that's happening in some of those rooms, not 100% of the rooms, but you know, I've learned stuff in some of the rooms as well, right? And so anytime I'm learning something, that I get addicted to that. I'm like, okay, I want to get pulled back to that. So one, there's some personal branding benefits of being able to get your name out there a little bit more. And secondly, an opportunity to learn. So let's say, for instance, somebody is a startup and you get in some of those rooms and you spend whatever, an hour a day just absorbing information. Do you still wouldn't advise that?
I think the reason I say no,
even if it's at night and you're not doing shit.
I'll say this. I mean, it'd be better than watching TV.
Don't have it take away from your business.
It'd be better than watching TV. But for most beginners who don't have a team, like when I was starting, I sat in crap you not. I'm like deciding if I'm gonna cuss or not.
You can cuss all you want.
Perfect. So I moved back to my parents' home, and I sit in there 12 hours a day messaging people and doing sales calls over and over and over and over to get the revenue high enough to hire people. So I think information is not the issue. I mean, you can go on Google, how to start an online business. But when the 8 trillion search results come up, who do I listen to? So Clubhouse actually, in my opinion, is actually creating more confusion because people all say different things, which is why I'm such a proponent of hiring a coach. I tell people straight up, you don't like me, hire someone else, because even if they suck, let's say they're the worst coach, you're going to know for sure what not to do, because a lot of people, they don't take any steps and then they're just, oh, should I do that? Should I do this? Should I do that? I'm sitting on Clubhouse, I'm like, man, these people are getting more confused because everyone's chiming in with different opinions. So again, for the higher level individuals, we have enough experience to go, I don't like that.
I've had a different experience.
Beginners just don't know. And that's why I get so passionate when I talk, because I just am like, guys, like, don't do that. You're gonna put yourself in such a bad position. I've been there.
Yeah, you want to get sucked into that if it's taking away from the execution.
So I tell people, like, dude, focus on one thing. And if you have a question, go on Clubhouse, get the advice, choose who you're going to listen to, and then just do it. But don't sit there and second guess.
Or specifically ask a person, because if you ask a generic and not direct it to a person, then you might get 10
like call them
answers.
Out. Hey,
Tanner,
John, Tom,
give me, what do you think about this, right? Somebody that you actually want to speak to.
I actually want to be on there more, but
I know.
We do have a pretty big team, but we're so busy in our family lives and our business lives.
Well,
it's like the only time I have to be on there is in my damn car, and I lose service all the time.
Exactly. And like if you got kids and all that, it's just a whole nother level. So people are sacrificing stuff right now. Some of my buddies are on there 16 hours a day, and I guarantee home life is not good right now. It just can't be. You can't push this direction and then nothing else will be affected. So for me, I'm a single guy, 28. I don't got shit to do. So I'll hop on there all day right now and see if it plays out. And it may not, but I will say it's not turning into exorbitant amount of sales. It's not the direct result. What I'm thinking of this year is getting my brand as big as I can for longer term plays.
Your personal brand?
My personal brand. So like you're going to see You're gonna see me.
It's a good follow-up podcast to the personal branding one that we did last week.
You're gonna see me push really hard on Instagram. You're gonna see my Facebook page blow up. I'm trying to push YouTube. That's the hardest, but I just feel like at $15 million a year in consulting, the ceiling is getting very close. So I'm starting to go, okay, let me try to push that a little higher. And then I'm ready to get my COO set, and I'm going to step out maybe 1 or 2 days a week. I'll be at meetings, but then I'm ready for the next thing because there's a ceiling in this business, and I could keep doing it. But going back to what we talked about, I'm ready to grow, man. I'm ready to do something else.
We're in the same boat, right? Honestly.
Exactly. Let me ask you this. How many people do you think that are worth, let's say, $10+ million had a coach or a mentor?
Oh, dude, they all had one.
They all had one.
Even people who say they didn't pay, they still have one.
They had somebody guiding them.
Yeah,
right?
because it's too hard to figure everything out on your own. And I'll even say this, I've been very vocal. Some of the coaches I hired, I didn't think were very good. But in hindsight, something, my mentor, David Fry, said, he's like, you know what, Tanner? He's like, you should still be grateful because he's like, even going in a program that you paid a bunch of money, you learned one thing. He's like, that could have helped you. And it's true. It's the first program I was in, this is the only thing I learned, straight up. Oh, sell people high-priced packages over the phone. But that one idea, that one thought where I didn't even know people did that, I literally didn't know. Yeah. I was 25 years old. I was like, people do this? I mean, I've done $25 million in revenue.
I think too many people are looking for a shit ton of information that's just going to blow their mind. And all you need to do is find that one piece of information that your business is lacking, that one thing that could take it from this level to the next level. And in most cases, people aren't doing a whole shit ton of things wrong. There's just 1 or 2 minor tweaks. It's almost like the frequency on a radio. You could be 1 or 2 little turns away, and it's just frequency, but then you dial it in 1, 2 clicks. And then you've got the music, right? Yeah. And so it's the same in business.
You know too, but you hear it a certain way. That's
sometimes
oh my gosh, why am I not doing that?
They reinforce it. Sometimes you just want that reassurance. Oh, so I am right. It's stupid.
You're doing everything right. Just keep doing it. Do it for a longer period of time. You're just a rookie in the game, right? Yeah, man. And so they think in 6 months, if they're not crushing it, that they're doing something wrong. Sorry, the guy on Instagram posted up next to the planes and Lamborghini. He probably did that over 10 or 20 years or just rented the ship. One of the two. He didn't have that in 6 months. So that's the thing is a lot of people show the end result, not the process. 100%. And so I think the newbies are trying to emulate the end result rather than going through the process.
Well, yeah, and they just beginners need to keep in mind the reason we show that shit is you click on it. Mm-hmm. Stop clicking on it, I'll stop showing it. People get mad at me. They're like, "Oh, you show your Lamborghini and this and that." I'm like, "Bro, you're the one who clicks on my stuff and buys it."
Yeah.
The only reason I show it is because I don't like to be super flashy. I'm not trying to do that, but at the end of the day, I'm playing the game too, and I got to do what works. And if you're clicking on my ads and I see that it's performing better, I'm gonna keep showing that stuff.
Well, even Stuman said that. He goes, "Dude, I bought the Lamborghini. It works, dude. It sells
straight up.
People just like it. So
straight up.
By default, I was like, okay, well, people like it. I'll buy it.
The one time a depreciating asset is actually not a depreciating asset, right?
As if it pulls in business elsewhere because it catches people's eyeballs. Whatever he's doing, I want to do that.
And it doesn't mean anything. The more stuff I've gotten, the less I actually care. It's like I had that car. I bought my Lamborghini maybe 3 months ago. Customized the whole thing. I'm already like, oh, it's whatever. It doesn't. It's
not as cool as what people make it out to be when they think that that's what they want. Because I've talked about getting a
short-term
Bentley or an Aston Martin. And I've talked about that for 8 years. And it's like finally when I get to the point where I can buy it and pay cash for it, it's just like I don't really care as much anymore because it's like the validation now comes from me rather than seeking validation externally. Yeah. But again, there is value in having it because he's utilizing it in order to continue to grow his personal brand and his business. Because still, for whatever reason, startups think that, okay, I want a Lamborghini. No, you just want to be able to have options. Yeah. That's really what you want. And by the time you get to the point of being able to have it, you may not even want it anymore because you're a whole different individual at that point.
And I'll even say none of that stuff impresses the guys with money. Yeah. But when my consulting business and a lot of businesses, you need to cater to beginners because there's more of them. And then as you get higher level, you're doing different stuff. Like what I'm going to be doing now is more like private equity. That's for higher net worth individuals. That's not usually for beginners. So, it's just funny. It's like sometimes I wish I could just pull everyone aside. I'm like, all right, sit down. Let me explain this to you. Yeah. But dude, I love business. It's interesting. There's so many facets to it. It's what keeps
it's just a big
fun.
game, and you're just trying to get the best that you can at the game and learn from anybody and everybody, being a lifetime student. And, the prejudging thing is super, super important because, I mean, look at us. We all look like somewhat young guys. I wear a baseball hat every single day. People could easily walk by and look past us and not think that we can bring them value, right? But in reality, you're just hurting yourself when you start prejudging other individuals, right? You could be passing on an opportunity of somebody that could really serve you and help you in business just in general based upon your own internal bias, prejudging, because you think a business owner's supposed to be suited and booted from top to bottom and look like a damn attorney or something. Well, that's just not how it works. I wanted to become an entrepreneur so I didn't have to look like that.
Well, it's funny, just on the same wavelength, the whole reason I flew out here on a dime, for anyone who's listening, I'm from Miami, and these guys hit me up, and I was like, tell me when to come, I'll fly out. Is because, I get all these offers all the time for podcasts, but I never get like a decent size. And I was like, man, hell yeah, I'm going on that podcast, because it's like you always get all these offers and stuff too that
they got 300 followers.
People and don't get me wrong, like I've tried to help people, but it gets to the point where you only have so much time and you're always getting pitched stuff. So it was refreshing for me too to get like a decent sized podcast. I was like, yeah, man, I like actually give some, because I want people to hear it.
You're like, okay, here's another person that wants me on the podcast.
Yeah, and it's like,
and then you click over the profile, you're like, okay, let's talk. You know?
it's just there's no one's hearing it, and like for me, kind of like to what you said, like I'm trying to grow my brand and I'm trying to get more people just to hear me. Like it's exciting to talk when people are listening. When no one's hearing it, it's like I'm not trying to waste my breath.
That's why rooms at Clubhouse with fucking 5 people or 10 people, you're saying, what's up with the one with like
the 1,000?
Let's get some eyeballs on me over here.
Yeah, man.
It's true. It's just the way it is. And we actually talked about that in the last podcast of personal branding. I said, once you have the proof, the social proof, you're going to be able to get to other players that are really playing the game, right? Because you've proven that you bring enough value to enough people and you have the attention, then you're going to be able to work with other people that want attention. That's what all of us want as entrepreneurs. We realize that's where the value is. The more eyeballs we have on our business, the more opportunities that we have, right? And so I love that this podcast is coming out right after that one, because it's really validating some of the things that we talked about when you said, oh, I saw your profile, and I was like, yeah, I'll come out. Because we said, if we would have been messaging somebody with 500 followers, they're not going to fly out or want to come out and be on the podcast because there's no social proof.
Well, you can keep taking your shot to get on big podcasts or whatever, but dude, I mean,
you got to build. You got to build your
be able to bring some value before you're going to get accepted.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off, brother. No, like something to keep in mind for the beginners though is don't get caught up in that hype until you're at a level to execute on.
When you got cash flow coming in.
Yeah, because for me, like if I was a beginner and you guys invite me out, I may not, because if I'm not making money, this is no good. I have no systems to actually utilize this, and so a lot of beginners, they get caught up in that social proof game. And I'm just saying, guys, you can buy your social proof, meaning you can pay for enough press and get on enough pages to play. And a lot of people, that's what they do. Unless you're very attractive, you got a big booty, or you're famous already. Most of the big entrepreneurs you see, Grant Cardone, Gary Vee, all those guys, I know for a fact they were paid for tons of shout outs, and they pay, and there's nothing wrong with it. Like some people look at it as like it's a bad thing. I'm like, why is that bad?
That's the game. If that's what you got to do, play the game.
You're paying to get more people to see you. As more people see you, more people follow you.
What's the point of marketing?
That's the whole point.
Get an ad in front of somebody, so that they could see you.
So there's nothing wrong. Like all I focused on when I was a beginner is getting eyeballs with ads and converting them to sales. And now that I have more money and I've kind of hit a ceiling in this business, right? Like 15 million a year in a consulting business, you're getting close. Like 20 to 30 million. Like I've never really heard over 30 ever in just that business. So for me, I'm going, you know what? For me to push new levels, it's kind of time for me to get out there as big and broad as I can to try to go for 20, and then at that point get into other things. But dude, it's a good topic. Hopefully I didn't go on a tangent.
No, it's great. Good, man. We love tangents. So let me ask you this: how do people connect with you? People are obviously going to be vibing the podcast, vibing you in general in terms of some of the information that you shared today. Where would they go to connect with you, or Clubhouse.
Yeah, I don't know.
You'll catch him on Clubhouse.
I don't know.
Even if he's not in Clubhouse, he's in Clubhouse.
I'll try to be on that. It gets bad though, because sometimes you got the ear pods in your ears, you're in the shower and stuff. It's like, okay, how far am I gonna go down this rabbit hole? But no,
you're gonna be sleeping like military, how they can sleep with eyes open. You're gonna learn how to listen while you're sleeping.
No, but my favorite places to connect is either my YouTube. Just because like that's where people can get more video content and get to know me.
And what's the YouTube channel?
Yeah, so just Tanner Chidester, just my name.
Okay.
And then my Instagram is Tanner.Chidester because a 14-year-old kid wouldn't let me buy it off him. I tried, man. And then after that, they just got more. They want more information about my company in general. They just go to EliteCEOs.com. And that's just kind of like a page with testimonials, what we do, quick video about me, info. So. Yeah, those are probably the top 3.
We'll put all that stuff in the bio as well of the podcast, just so that, if you didn't have a pen and paper and able to, write it down or forget about it, just check the bio so that you can connect with them there. Badass podcast, dude. We appreciate you coming out, dude. Like,
I appreciate it. I always worry that I talk too much because when I get excited, that's my thing. I start talking, and before you know it, they're like, "Hey, man, let's get back to the actual question."
People are reeling you back in a little bit. It's all good, dude. Man. I'm very, very similar. A lot of people say that I need to shut up a little bit more. So. Well, I'm guilty of that myself, but no, you killed it today, dude, without a doubt. And
appreciate it.
We're honored to have you in our office and in our conference room, and that you took time out of your day to come check us out.
Absolutely, I appreciate it. I'll do it again anytime.
So, guys, we know you enjoyed the episode. Make sure that you're sharing this information with individuals that you care about. Right? At the end of the day, your circle really does matter, and they should be absorbing the exact same content that you're absorbing so that you guys are reaching those levels together. Otherwise, you're going to outgrow the people that you hang out with, and when you outgrow the people you hang out with, in 2 or 3 years, they will no longer be your friends. We probably all, have you seen that a little bit? You kind of outgrow some of the people that you used to be homies with.
Absolutely.
And you want the best for them, but at the end of the day, you have a goal that's the most important thing to you. And unfortunately, you can't take everybody with you. They're going to have to want it as well. And so share the information that lights a fire under your ass. So hopefully it does the same for the people that you care about. Guys, we wish you nothing but the best. Keep doing your thing. Have a kick-ass day.